मैम नया चैप्टर शुरू कर रहे हैं।
जी हैदर,
मैम नया चैप्टर शुरू कर रहे हैं।
ट्रिग्नोमेट्री। ठीक है, ओके। So starting the next topic, trigonometry. Today we'll just be discussing graphs of uh, sine theta or sine x, cosec, tan x, and their reciprocal function. 1 over sine x is actually cosecant x. 1 over cosec is secant x, short for SEC, and 1 over tan x is cotx. So last year you've already studied graph of sine, cos, tan, and their transformation. Sine 2x, yeah, 2 sine x, yeah, cos half x or half cos x. So you already know that. We'll quickly revise that, and then we will also be plotting the graphs of their reciprocal. So let's start with sine. Okay. So graph for sine x. So if you remember from last year, it was, if I just draw a single curve, then the graph looks like this. Starts from, doesn't really start from 0, but one period we can say starts from 0 and end at 360. So the period of sine x graph was 360, or in radians we can say that the periodicity of sine x curve is 2 pi, 360 or 2 pi. Yes, okay. Now let's discuss the graph for its reciprocal function, which is cosecant x. Also, the maximum value here was 1 and the minimum value here was minus. So, since we're going to be taking reciprocal of every value of the original curve, तो मुझे बताओ 0 का reciprocal क्या होता है?
Infinity.
Infinite, yes, exactly, infinite. और infinite तो हम नहीं represent कर सकते on a graph. So instead what we'll do, we'll draw asymptotes here. यहाँ पे 0 पे, इधर 0 पे, 180 पे, and at 360 we're going to draw asymptotes. And how do you represent asymptote? You make dotted lines. You make dotted vertical lines. So there's an asymptote at 0, there's an asymptote at 180, and then there's an asymptote at 360. So 0, okay, 180, and 360. Okay. What is the reciprocal of 1? 1 का reciprocal क्या होता है? Yes, the reciprocal of 1 is 1. Reciprocal 1 का तो reciprocal 1 ही रहता है. That means this point here is going to be still 1. And what is the reciprocal of minus 1?
Minus 1.
Minus 1, because minus 1 over 1 is still minus 1. I hope you know what reciprocal means. Like the reciprocal of 3 by 2 will be 2 by 3. So reciprocal of 5 will be 1 by 5. So reciprocal of 1 will be 1 by 1, which is still 1. And reciprocal of minus 1 will be 1 over minus 1, which is still minus. So that is why 1 is going to stay the same and minus 1 is going to stay the same. So I'm going to write 1 here and minus 1 here. Up now you need to remember the rest of it, that this graph looks like this here. यूं हो जाता है. and this one, the negative mountain type thing becomes like this. And make sure that your graph should not touch the asymptote. It will get very near to the asymptote, but it will never intersect it. We'll keep getting closer to it, but it cannot intersect. मेरी आवाज सही आ रही है because I'm getting your internet connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me? Okay, ठीक है. अगर आवाज कटनी शुरू हुई या वीडियो लैग होनी शुरू हुई तो do let me. Okay, so this is going to be the graph for cosecant x. ठीक है? Since this curve has all positive values, तो यहाँ पे भी positive होगा. And since this curve has all negative values, तो वो यहाँ पे भी negative होगा. ठीक है? That's the graph for cosecant x. Okay. Let's now plot the graph for sine 2x. Okay. So y equals sine 2x. That means between 0 to 360 degree, now 2 cycles will be completed. So 360 is here, you'll get a graph like this. One cycle is completed at 180 and the second cycle is completed at 360. इतना अच्छा graph नहीं बना, but I hope you get the idea. Okay. So now we're going to plot the graph for y equals cosecant 2x, and you're given a domain. Let's say the given domain is between 0 to 180 degrees. So then we'll just have to show this much of the graph, 0 to 180. Yeah. So let's say 180 is here. We will have an asymptote at 0. So an asymptote here, another asymptote here, and another asymptote here. So एक तो 180 पे asymptote है और एक 90 पे भी है, between 180 and 0. So this is 90 and that's 180. Okay. And then again 1 stays 1 and -1 stays -1. So the first curve is like this. Do not let it touch the asymptote. And similarly, the second curve will be like this. And this can't touch the asymptote either. It should be very close to the asymptote, but it will not touch it. Okay, that's the graph for cosecant 2x. Let's now discuss the graph for sine half x. So in sine half x, only half of the cycle is completed between 0 and 360 degree. The 0 here, 360 degree here. So a full cycle is not completed, but half cycle is completed. So it will be like this. And then a full cycle is completed at 720 degrees. But let's assume that the asked domain is from 0 to 360 degrees. So the given domain is 0 to 360. So now we're going to sketch the graph for y is equals to cosecant half x, and we'll plot it between 0 to 360 degree. So asymptote at 0, asymptote at 360, जहां जहां 0 था पहले वो asymptote बन गया infinite. 1 stays 1 And since that's a positive curve, तो वो यूं आएगी. Make sure the asymptote never crosses this curve. ये हो गया. Graph of cosecant half x. Okay. Please let me know when you're done copying this. हो गया copy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's discuss the graph for cosec and its reciprocal function secant x. So y is equals to cosec, you already know from ASP1, is I'm going to draw one cycle of it on only between 0 to 360 degree. So it goes like this. 1 से start होता है और 1 पे खत्म. And it is also between 1 and -1. And this is 360. That would be 180. This would be 90. And this would be 270. So now we're going to sketch the graph for y is equals to secant x, which is reciprocal of this graph. So that is going to have asymptote here at 90. So an asymptote at 90 and asymptote at 270. 90, 270. 1 is going to stay 1 and -1 is going to stay minus. Now this is a positive curve. 1 se start ho raha hai. So we'll also start from 1 and we'll draw an upward curve like this. This is a negative curve. -1 is at 180. So yahan pe -1 will be at 180. This is 180. And we have 360 here. So a negative curve here. And then a positive curve here. So like this. That's the graph for secant x. Okay. Now let's sketch cos 2x. Y equals cos 2x. Now this curve will have two cycles between 0 to 360 degrees. So one cycle will be from 0 to 180 degrees. And next cycle will be between 180 to 360 degrees. The question will ask you to draw the graph within a limited domain, maybe between 0 to 90, maybe between 0 to 180. So I'm going to ask you to limit the domain from 0 to 180. So you will only be plotting this part of the graph. यहाँ से लेकर यहाँ तक. Okay. Now we're going to sketch y equals secant 2x in the same domain. So it's going to go till 180. So we have an asymptote here, an asymptote here. What are these values? This would be 90. That would be 45. And what is this? 135. 90, yes, 135. So when we have an asymptote at 45, this is 90. In between that is 45, and in between these two we have 135. Okay, so two asymptotes at 45. जहाँ पे 0 था cos के ग्राफ पे, that becomes an asymptote in secant x graph. Okay, correct. So the one, नेटफ्लिक्स नहीं लगाना, इंटरनेट स्लो हो जाता है, वैसे टीवी देख लो, चले जाए. ओके, बेटा हो जाता है, फिर मेरे से क्लास नहीं दी जाती. ओके, एंड देन लाइक दिस. बाय बाय. Just give me a second. Okay, so that's the graph for secant 2x. Now let's also plot the graph for secant half x and cos half x. So y equals, y equals cos half x. Now, only half a cycle will be completed between 0 to 360 degrees. A full cycle of cos looks like this. So the half looks like this. So we start from here and we end here. Half a cycle only. This is 1 and that's -1. And this is going to be 180. Okay. Now, the graph for y equals secant half x. One -1. Asymptote at 180 only. An asymptote at 180. And a positive curve here. And a negative curve here, like this. Yeah. For secant half x. So these are all the graphs for cos and secant. The next we're going to discuss the graph for tan and cot. Tan का ग्राफ काफी डिफरेंट हो जाता from sin and cos. So y equals tan x. If you remember, the period or periodicity for tan x is 180 degree. Yeah, pi. The graph completes one revolution between 0 to 180 degree. So यूं जाता है और फिर यूं complete हो जाता है. Ends at 180 and there used to be an asymptote here at 90. The graph cannot touch the asymptote. Oops. Looks like this. So this is 90 degree. So this is one cycle for tan x. And now we're going to draw one cycle for cotx. So 0 was at 0. And 0, we have a 0 at 180 degrees. So we'll have asymptotes here now. Asymptote at 0 degrees. Asymptote at 180 degrees. अच्छा, ये जो इधर asymptote है, what will this change into this asymptote? What is going to be the reciprocal of this asymptote?
0.
0, yes. If you take reciprocal of a very big value, for example, 1 over 1 trillion, yeah, as many zeros as possible, that's going to be 0.000000000 something. So it's going, if you take reciprocal of a very big value, you get 0. So 90 पे will get a 0. So what happens, ये curve जो है वो एक तरह से कह लो कि reflect हो जाते हैं. So you will get a curve like this. ये reflect हो गया and the other continuous curve will be like this. ये बन गया cotx. Now let's discuss cot 2x and tan 2x. So y equals tan 2x. So tan 2x will complete 2 cycles between 0 to 180 degree. And most probably, you will be asked to show just one cycle. तो वो आपको कहेंगे कि इसको plot करें between 0 to 90. इतना ज़्यादा नहीं plot करवाते. So one cycle will be completed between 0 to 90. So let's say the given domain is 0 to 90 degrees. So you will only show one complete cycle. So इस तरह का ग्राफ होगा. एसिम्प्टोट है वो जो पहले 180 पे खत्म हो रहा था वो 90 पे खत्म. And then you will draw an exactly the same graph, but you had an asymptote at 180, but now you'll have an asymptote at 90. Okay, the first cycle ends at 90. 90 here, so we'll have a graph like this. There's going to be a 0 at 45 and an asymptote here. So tan 2x में 180 तक 2 cycles complete होती हैं. And the question usually asks you to show one cycle only, तो वो अपने domain को restrict कर लेते हैं. Even 0 to 45 भी कह सकते हैं. So if they ask you to plot the curve between 0 to 45 degree only, so for tan it's going to be this curve only, and for cot it's going to be this curve only. So usually the domain is very restricted in graph questions. Okay. And lastly, graph for cot half x and tan half x. Okay. Tan half x में half cycle complete होगी between 0 to 180 degree. Usually 180 degree पे complete होती है tan x की one cycle, तो अब half cycle 180 पे complete होगी. That means one complete cycle 360 पे complete होगी. So it will look like this. The asymptote will be at 180 now. So half cycle will look like this, and a full cycle will look like this. ज़्यादातर questions में वो आपसे खाली 0 to 180 ही plot करा. And then you plot cot half x. So the asymptote is going to be between 0 and 360 degree. ठीक है. Asymptote here and an asymptote at 360 degree. And earlier we had an asymptote at 180, now that would be a 0. So the curve will look like this. Oh. So these are all the transformations you need to know for tan x and cotx graphs. Okay. I think इधर आज lesson end करते हैं क्योंकि अगली बात हम अगले lesson में करेंगे so that there is a continuity. अभी start कराऊंगी मैं identities of other movement. Okay, so that's all for today. We'll next meet on Monday inshallah because we can't have class on. So कल परसों class नहीं होगी, the next class will be on Monday. Okay, take care, have a great Eid. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Hafiz.